All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Natalie Roll.
Mary Jo Wheeler-Schuler.
Present.
Tom Buckey. Ken Bargander.
Here.
Russ Stauber.
Here.
Paul Kapla.
Here.
Lyle Lane.
Here.
Andrew Rigel.
Here.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. Real quick, I'd like to make an adjustment, if it's okay with everyone. We have a couple of us that need to get going to meetings this morning, so we'd like to shorten up the agenda a little bit. Surprise, Steve. So I'd like to be able to, obviously, item number 10 on the agenda, Marcia's not going to be here today. Item number 11, Tom Lokes, I'd like to remove that as well. I'd like to table 12, 13, due to the fact that we don't know about funding and clarity on that. I saw someone shake their head. So do we want to vote on these separate? Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, no, I think number 12, I think just out of the interest of time, because I think if we delay this any longer, we're going to start pushing back the actual applications for that program. That's my concern. I mean, generally speaking, if we're pushing this off, I wouldn't care, but I'm just thinking that at this point, we're pushing it too far deep into the year for applications.
Okay. Concern with it, though, is we don't know if we can give money, because that's why we have HAP here today. So are we okay adjusting the agenda to move 10 and 11 off?
I think, Steve, did you have a comment on that?
No, I would have agreed with what Andrew was saying, but it seems like we've recognized that we want to get to that item if we can.
Okay. Any other items anyone would like to see removed? Okay. Then we will move on to item number 2, introduction of Assistant City Administrator, Community Development Director, Carrie Edmondson.
Yeah, thank you. I'll start. Carrie, feel free to speak about yourself, but we're very blessed to have Carrie with us, and she comes to us with a good background. It's been a long wait, as we know, for this position to be filled. It's a new position called Assistant City Administrator / Community Development Director. She has background, like I said, in planning, zoning, economic development. She has a master's in public administration, AICPI certified planner, has worked the last few years for the city of Wisconsin Rapids, and is also on the plan commission for the town of, now the village of Rib Mountain. So grateful to have her here, and I think she'll be a big part of this group as well.
Thank you, and I'm really looking forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks for attending today. Item number 3, approval of minutes, February 1st, 2024, regular meeting. Tom, motion, second. Paul? All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. All right, item number 4, identify any potential conflicts of interest. Please be advised that per city policy 3.340, any member of the body shall declare a conflict if they have any interest, financial or otherwise, direct or indirect, or engage in a business or transaction or professional activity, or incur any obligation of any nature that is in conflict with the proper discharge of this body's official duties. Are there any conflicts today? Okay, no conflicts. Good. Item number 5, citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens' comments today? Going once, going twice, sold? Kidding. Chairperson's comments. I have nothing. We'll keep it short and sweet today. Board member comments. Item number 7. Any board member comment? Short and sweet as well. All right. Item number 8, update on 205 fund balance sheet through 1/31/24.
Yeah, you have the latest report that we have, which is through the end of January. And I apologize, these reports aren't, up to the real current, but it's because we meet in the first Thursday of the month usually, and that's shortly after they're trying to close out the previous month. But if you look at the activity, it's somewhat limited. No big things occurred. We do have the appropriation coming in from what we get from the dividend. But you see the fund balance at about $936,000 is pretty much where it is. Any questions?
Any questions on that? Okay, thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, item number 9, response to the question on the board's authority to expend funds from the city's 205 fund. Mr. Happ, you want to talk about this a little bit?
I don't know really what to say more than what was contained in the memorandum, which I think was shared with everybody. So this is really the basis of that is that the statute's very clear that the Common Council controls the funds of the city. Almost absolutely. There are limited exceptions, but those exceptions typically require a grant of some type of authority to do that. And I'll use probably those members that have been on the Common Council will kind of be familiar with this. But one of those examples is for the PFC. The PFC does have the ability, because of its optional powers, to expend some funds that maybe are not within the normal allocation process, but you've done that by giving them the optional powers. So there is a grant of authority that's behind their ability to spend funds without the control of the Common Council. Other than those limited examples, Utility Commission being another, that's not the case. So there has to be, when you have any allocation of funds from a subservient body like the EDB, then you trace it back to, at some point, an express authority to expend money. I didn't see that here. Talked to staff, went through some background on this. So that's the basis of my opinion. And it's not that that couldn't change. In theory, that could happen. I think that you talked a little bit about the grant program, and the grant program is a little different because the EDB has the funds for the grant program in its budget. So there is sort of an implied authority to issue those funds, although there still is some question over the limitation or perhaps even the extent of the grant program funds without being very clear that it's, within the body's purview to issue those funds without some sort of approval. And not just approval, but maybe eliminating the authority of the Common Council to come back and undo something. So that's something to watch for as you look at how are you going to do your program for that. But as to the 205 fund, you see my opinion, and that's the basis of it.
Thank you, Heb. I do have some questions on this. I think everybody knows what happens when the tide goes out. You see who's swimming naked. And I think when it came to city budget and things that were going on in the city, the 205 fund was, hey, we need to balance our budget. We need to figure this out. So it really didn't become an issue until this past year. But I think also when Tom Bucky went to Common Council to speak, and we had already voted on and approved that pickleball money, and then it was told no. I just don't want to get us into a situation where we're granting money to something. An example of this would be, okay, the facade grant ends up, there is a gun shop owner that decides to build and apply for the facade grant. And now you have this political back and forth with it. And they've done the application, they've done everything they should, but we don't have any expressed written authority from anyone on it, really. So we need to get that. We need a policy and procedure that's clear that can go in front of Common Council to give us authority to approve that. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. I have to agree with what you have said there. I realize it's been that way for a long time. The council's got the final authority. But in the committees, we are the ones that really get into the meat of this stuff. And then it's then when the rug's pulled out underneath us and you really don't have the background that we do, we have the discussion. It'd be nice, and I'm not caring about the grant that was turned down, for different reasons for the pickleball. But, I just don't want it to have somebody pull the rug out from underneath us when we've done the background on it. And if there's interest from the council, it'd be nice for them to come to a meeting and explain why you didn't want that. Because otherwise I thought, what are we here for? What is this board here for? If we can't do this, and then it makes us look bad. Why would we want to do that? Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. I think it ends up being a social session at that point, with no teeth to it. Steve, did you want to speak?
Thank you. Yeah, Hap and I have talked about this a couple times, including yesterday. And let me see if I can boil this down to what you're saying. If it's something that's was not part of the approved budget, then like any other department in the city, they have to bring a budget resolution forward to transfer money from the fund to use it. If it's part of the approved budget, what you're saying is get a resolution approved by the council that deeds authority, if you will, to this body to make those final decisions on facade grants or something like that that's included in the annual budget that's already been blessed. Am I on the right track?
So, yes, first of all of this can be sorted out by basically, bringing these issues forward. I think you're doing that in this meeting, and there's going to be minutes created. When you talk about the Common Council and the input, you've got 2 members of the Common Council on this body. And so you have at least that arm of the Common Council in terms of what's happening. If there's support, right, when this gets up or something, and I'm now talking about the pickleball project, if that's there and there's some support, that's the opportunity for that feedback. So what this really is, and we have many of these in the city, is a recommendatory body on some items. Getting to the point that you're making, and this is what we talked about yesterday, is just that the money is allocated for the facade program. And so that's in your budget. And it certainly is implied that you can expend those funds based on the allocation of that money to your budget. The question that remains, though, is that, and you folks have seen this, right? That then you maybe take some action, and at some point in the minutes of the Common Council, somebody pulls it off and starts asking about a project that you've approved, maybe for a grant. The question becomes then, and this hasn't, this is fantastic that you're having this discussion now before this actually happened. But what could happen? Somebody pull those minutes off and say, I don't think we should give that grant for various reasons. An example would be the type of political one that you're talking about. Somebody says, we don't want a gun shop there. And you are now dealing with that question, and then it becomes a question of power. Does the Common Council have the ability then to undo that? Because ultimately they hold those purse strings. The answer to that should be, let's make sure how that works and have a program that has been blessed by the Common Council that gives you the authority to make that grant without them coming back. And that can be done by a resolution of the Common Council. That's what you and I talked about yesterday. So that what it would say is, here's the money in that budget that the EDB will have the final authority to grant the funds from that to individuals under a particular program. And once it says that, then the idea that the council would come back and then redo something or look at something or take something away, well, that's eliminated. But at the end of the day, that's a decision when that resolution would come to the council for them to exercise their discretion. Are they comfortable giving that to the EDB? Is that the end of the show? And there are definitely, it makes sense with what you're saying. That's part of the reason we have these bodies that are more involved. Some of them are extremely specialized. The audit committee, for example, has a very specialized body that has certain skills that we appreciate. That's why it's there. And that's the same thing with the EDB. The makeup is designed for, trying to discuss and advise in regard to economic development. And so if the Common Council chose to grant that without any question, and when I look at the facade program, even though that's in the budget, I do pause to say, I'm not sure, okay? I have an opinion about it. I don't want to give it right now, but I'm not sure what the end solution would be, that if somebody on the Common Council pulled that off and said, I see the EDB recommended that this grant be given, and we have problems with that for whatever reason.
So later in this agenda, if we get there, there's a set of potentially updated guidelines. You're suggesting that not only would they adopt a resolution to grant authority to this body to make those determinations, but also they would sort of give approval to the framework of, dollar for dollar match, only certain types of improvements can be done. No, yes?
So the answer is yes and no. I think that's up to how you would do it. And a resolution can be drafted any way that this body wants to do that. I spoke with Mary Jo and she asked about me drafting, and I said the same thing I tell the council. No, I'm not going to draft that without you telling me what you want. It's not up to me to create policy. It's just not correct because I could be influencing that politically. I do not do that. But the framework of that could look like anything you want. If you put together a resolution that says, here's our program and this is what it is, dollar for dollar, and all the types of things. And I'm now thinking about the building revitalization grant program document that you had in the packet today, that kind of drills down into those details. The other way that a resolution could look like is just simply saying, we, the Common Council, have granted this money to the budget of the EDB, and it shall be under their authority exclusively that those funds will be allocated. Done. You don't have to get into the details of how it happens or what's going to happen. Is there an appeal process or anything like that? It's then allowed for the EDB. This happens in government all the time. Now, this probably sounds scary, but that's where we get the DMV. That's where we get the ATF. That's those kinds of bodies that they say what the finer detailed rules are going to be. And that's what you could do. And I think, truthfully, if you go back to the to the grant program, that was the concept of it. I think that's why we're here, not totally sure, because I think when this program was first designed, and again, I wasn't in it at that point or anything, but I think the reason that the rules have been a little loose is because I think the body did look at it like that. Okay, we're gonna have a grant program, let the Main Street deal with it and let EDB deal with it. And there weren't any details because it was expected that those details would probably be fleshed out here. All I'm saying is it's a little bit of a rough draft at this point in terms of how does that exactly work. You folks should redefine it like what you've done with your document here, but we should get a resolution in front of the council that blesses, that's your money, you do with it what you want. So you don't have that situation where you're talking about something's been done as a grant under the revitalization program, and then it's pulled off of the minutes and somebody says, well, we're the Common Council, and it doesn't say that they can just do exactly what they want with the money. Yes, it's in their budget, but we could stop that. And there are examples of that, right? So imagine, for example, that you have a department, and the department's got in its budget certain types of equipment, right? And they go through a purchase order to buy, for example, a street sweeper, a fire truck, whatever it might be. Fire truck is under the PFC, but just as an example, the concept of some large item. And then when that money comes through those minutes from some subservient body, gets in front of the council, and the council says, well, I don't think we should buy that one. And they do probably have the authority to say, wait a minute, that's in your budget, but we're going to stop that one from happening or those terms from happening. And you don't want to be dealing with that here is what you're saying. So this is the right way to deal with it. Get a resolution where the Common Council says, yes, that's your money. That's how you're going to do it. We're not going to worry about the details.
One more comment. I don't want to belabor it, but just real quickly, just because I want to have clarity when this meeting is over that I can help these folks through the process. So the resolution, the level of detail that goes down to is kind of up to us. In other words, what you're not saying that if we adopt something today that says tuck pointing is not an eligible expense, they come along 3 months from now and want to add it. Oh, we got to go back to the council. It can be more broad than that potentially.
I mean, if you were asking me to do a resolution, that I would decide that, or however, but from a legal point of view, that's what you'd be trying to figure out. Make sure that whatever way you want to go, you could go detailed. This document that was prepared, it was, created as part of a resolution.
Right.
You could even do that way. You guys would pass this policy or this procedure for doing it, and you could include that as a resolution and say, this is what we're doing, we want you to bless it. If the Common Council does, it does. But you don't, that your problem would then be, you've now nailed down all these details, and if you want to change it later, now you're going back and saying, well, we want to change that revitalization program to take this piece out or to, have some other flexibility. And so to me, that is the risk of doing that. But I'm not going to tell you which way to do it. I think it's up to you folks to decide. And you do that just the same way as you do and make all other decisions. Talk about it, vote on it, and that vote would be something along the lines of, I make a motion that we prepare or have prepared a resolution that allows us to just simply get authority to spend the money without having to worry about the council coming.
Thank you, Hep. Andrew, did I see your hand up? Did you have a question? I wasn't ignoring you.
It was, I think most of them got answered. I guess I just have one here. Is there any other board committee that has power or spending power that's been delegated by Common Council at this point, or would this be the first one?
Steve's coming up and he's gonna address that. I talked about the PFC and the utility. There are some, and all departments have some limited authority for expenditures through policy.
Yeah, if I think about the Utilities Commission and the PFC, Police and Fire Commission, and the Library Board, but that's either by code or statutory. I'm not aware, Andrew, of anything that we're talking about today having been implemented.
Okay, so this would be a first then for us.
Yes. Any other questions?
I do have.
Go ahead.
I guess I just wanted to clarify two other things. The one thing that Mr. Buck had mentioned, I don't know if it was Mr. Buck, but someone had mentioned that Common Council shot down the 50,000 grant. That was not Common Council, that was PSC who shot it down. But just wanted to clarify that point there too. And then secondly, if it stands as it is right now, would be an advisory committee, as in, I think Hap had mentioned it, would be advising Common Council to approve what it is. But I think Mr. Wolfram did a phenomenal job talking about all the pitfalls that lay if that stands as it is right now.
Just to clarify, the pickleball request went to the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee, which is made up of half of the council, and they voted against it.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Russ.
Thank you. Thanks, Hap. So I think we're gonna have to think about this. Definitely not going to take any action today, but my initial thoughts are that any spending authority for the Economic Development Board should support the mission of the Economic Development Board. And I know we have bylaws that are outdated and that needs to be refreshed. And I think it should also, any expenditure should have a measurable return on investment. Don't know what that means. So it could be a buck for buck. You know, if we spend a buck, we expect $2 generated through economic development. And one of the pitfalls I see is that economic development has different meanings to each of us. You know, I might think it brings jobs. Someone else might think is heads on beds in hotels and that kind of thing. So that's where I think that there should be some structure to any authority granted by the council. And I kind of lean toward Economic Development Board having the authority with a few parameters. In other words, and I don't know what that is, you know, so we don't know what opportunities might be around the corner. The chairman mentioned one. You know, does the council set parameters saying, okay, we will allow Economic Development Board to have free reign of these funds with the exception of these circumstances? So, thank you.
So I think this goes back to when we talked about our bylaws. I think we need to form this committee just outside of this, and 3 or 4 of us that sit on it come up with a defined policy of what EDB is, and then take that, bring it to this body, have a conversation about it. If it moves past here, we can make any changes, and then we can ask for the resolution to the Common Council. But I think there's a lot of meat there that we need to chew on. And I think it would be best to have a smaller committee formed. I guess I make a motion to form the committee, and then who's interested in being on that committee. Do you have a second? Yeah, second, Tom? All those in favor? Any opposed? So then who is interested in being on the committee? Tom, you're not raising your hand very high. I can just see like a little thumb. I would be interested as well. So who else? What? You as well? Okay, 3. Lyle, how about you? Paul? You're getting voluntold at this point. Just kidding. Okay. I would love her to be part of that. I think that would be great. Okay. So we have Ken, Tom, myself, Russ, and Carrie. Okay. And of course, we have to follow open meeting rules with that. So we'll have to figure out a date. And I'm going to let Natalie deal with that with the emails. So please make sure we're checking emails.
And if it's okay, concurrently, if the board is all right with it, I'll work with the city attorney on what the framework of that resolution might look like. I realize you're trying not to get into the policy, but just in general, what that might look like when the time comes.
Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. All right.
I can forward.
It's not how it works in my house, but maybe. Just kidding.
Can I interject, as staff?
Absolutely.
Just one thought. So I understand the need for structure and to establish the policy with regard to funding. I guess my only concern, if it's tabling the Main Street guidelines for the facades, would that be putting that on hold? Because I do have some concern with just the construction season and timelines and just looking at the benefit to downtown. And is there any willingness on the committee's part to continue that as is just for this year, to look at things, moving forward with the next year? I guess that would be my question.
We got ourselves in some pickles last year with stuff and we said we were going to clean it up. It's just unfortunate this is getting given to us so late. Andrew?
I'd agree with Carrie there. Now, as far as the pickles you referenced last year, much of that was a beast of our own creation. And I think with the knowledge that we have now, or the experience, however you want to phrase it, we can avoid that there. I think a lot of the problems that we ran into were not necessarily program specific, but rather board specific. So I think we'll be able to avoid those problems that we had last year. And I think, there are improvements to be made, but I don't think it's to the point that it's not functional. I think it is functional. And I think some of these suggestions that we've made here to, combine two programs into one, I think that really does streamline some of the process. And in the process of doing that, does avoid some of the pitfalls that we ran into last year, or obstacles, however you want to phrase it. But like I said, I think the bulk of the problems that we ran into were self-imposed.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Main Street could be taking this on. They sort of do already. In the past, they normally recommend something to us, and with these guidelines, I think.
And that is what's proposed. So the proposal as it stands would be for them to review the applications, to make the determinations, and then the proposal is to combine the two programs into one. And then one of the things that was added, after talking to Councilman Reigel, we had some thoughts about establishing some type of scoring criteria, just so the design committee has something to go off of when they're looking at applications. And that is in your packet, but hopefully everyone got the revised score sheet that I did hand out. And that would be for that design committee for review. But I guess just looking at, creating more structure with the bylaws, I think there's definite benefit to a lot of the things that are being talked about, and moving forward would be great. I do have concern, though, if that would hold up this season. I guess that was the only thing I just wanted to know.
Any other discussion, Lyle?
My only thought would be this, that if we're having a discussion about how things should be done, there's no timeline. There's nothing saying things have to be done in a particular year. I mean, if we're having this discussion, we're spent most of our meeting time now talking about the importance of this moving forward. And now we're saying, well, it's good enough for now. I don't like that approach to things. I mean, just because the process or due diligence wasn't done on time doesn't mean we just push it forward as is and hope for the best next year. We all know how those things end up being. So my idea would be table these things. If we miss a year of this revitalization, it's not the end of the world. I mean, I'd rather have it done correctly. And the reason that we're having this meeting or spending time on this meeting is to get it. That would be my way of doing it.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? So, Tom? No. So the question is, do we table some of these items to get things corrected? Yeah.
Main Street rep is not here that I see, so.
There was a conflict with the Main Street board meeting times.
I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying that they're not here. So I would like them to have their input at our meeting to discuss this. So to Lyle's point, if we got to go on the way we had it to get it right for next year, so be it.
Go ahead, yeah.
So if Mr. Lang would make a motion to that effect, I would second the motion.
I make a motion.
All right, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Wait,
opposed?
what's the motion?
My understanding is to table the decision making for this year. Is that the right answer? Or currently, or
the
immediate future?
So it's
Pick one.
contrary to what you
And
believe,
so I guess,
Andrew. It's
so
contrary to your.
for clarification, then we're tabling this to the next EDB meeting or indefinitely?
Lyle?
I guess we would be discussing at the next meeting. Would be the intent.
Yes. Table it till the next meeting. And we can have another meeting in between there with this committee to get things moving. So,
Just a
I guess my
question.
only comment on that, I mean, if we have a second meeting in between the usually programmed monthly meetings, that's fine. I'd probably advise against having it this early in the morning, just because as you see today, we're having conflicts potentially rising in the latter half of it. And if it's a broad discussion that we're going to need to have, which based on today's discussion, sounds like it's going to be needed, we should probably do it where we don't have such time constraints on it.
yeah, we can do something in the evening, and Natalie can send out a poll on that as well. So, all right, so we have a motion and a second to table this till the next meeting. All those in favor, we said aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
One opposed.
Uh,
Motion carries.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
Chairperson, in the interest of time, item 15 is regarding public comments at board meetings. Would it be appropriate to discuss that now so that maybe Hap could weigh in if he has any input?
Absolutely, we can do that. We'll go ahead. We're going to move to review and discuss public comments at board meetings. So the question came up to give you a little background, Hap, and not just to throw you under the, hey, now what do I get to talk about, right? We had a gentleman come up and speak to quite length. And most meetings that I go to, there's a 3-minute rule to that. But I think it's also up to the chairperson to give discretion if it's something that merits discussion that we need to hear about. But right now with policy, we have no policy in place that says how many minutes somebody can speak. So someone could just come up there and speak about religion or politics or something not on the agenda, and we have no way of stopping them. So it was just recommended, and Ken had brought it forward, that we put a timeline on that. And then we also allow some flexibility that if it is something we want to hear more on, that we could do that as well.
Ultimately, you're controlling this meeting by Robert's rules, and the chair does have the authority to do that. And you could do it on a per meeting basis. The risk of doing that without creating more, guideline is just simply that then somebody complains about being been particularly biased against, right? So whatever that topic is, whatever, then you've got someone that's going to say, well, you cut me off because you don't like the topic. You cut me off because you don't like my political position. You cut me off because you don't care. So you've got, it makes sense, perhaps. We deal with this at the council, and frankly, I think that there's typically a 5-minute rule that's there, but the chair has the authority to grant an extension if that was requested for. And I think that's totally reasonable to do it that way. It helps to have the policy again, so you don't have someone making that claim. And it does make sense also for certain reasons to have the authority. And you can put that right into your policy, that there's a 5-minute limit with the exception that the chair may grant an extension for at its discretion.
And by the way, I do like your hair, so I would let you speak. Just kidding. Any other questions on that? Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, as long as we're talking policy today, do you think it benefits us to have a written policy or not? I mean, I can picture one with a 5-minute maximum, members of the commission or the board are not going to engage, no action will be taken, or just to be more high level. I mean, even the mayor at our council meetings doesn't have a written policy. What's your thought on that?
No, I don't think that it needs to be written. I think you could right now make a motion that you are going to treat it that way, and there's a record that that's what you've done, so that if somebody says, why'd you do that? You've already got the authority. You did it at a meeting. You said, we're gonna do it this way moving forward. The only thing would be if you're going to change it, then you're going to, so if all of a sudden you want to extend that or limit it or whatever it is, you need to have another motion in the future. But that is legitimately a way to do it, that you just simply do that here. You don't create a written policy necessarily, but just say, hey, I move that as a general procedure in the future, we do it this way. You could work it into your bylaws if you chose.
Thank you. I did bring this up at the last meeting, like Mary Jo said. I think a written policy would be very much appropriate, and it should be read just like our conflict of interest statement at every meeting. So it's clear that whoever comes for public comments knows that they have 3 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever we decide, And the comments should be related to the agenda. And it should be or related to economic development. Like I mentioned, Mary Jo, before the meeting, we don't want to get into a political thing. We don't want to get into religious stuff. Without a clear policy that is written, I believe that people would have the ability to do that. And I think it should be really clear before they even get started with public comments, anybody that comes here. That's my recommendation, that we do that. Thank you.
Lyle?
Just out of curiosity, so, I mean, a lot of the rules and everything we go by are written back in the day when, we were closer to Mayberry than we are where we are today. What would happen if a person just grabbed the microphone, got up, citizen comments, just started throwing profanities out there, calling everybody on this board a blankety, I mean, is there anything in place right now where someone could say, hey, cut the mic and be done?
I would cut the mic, jump the person, and walk them outside.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. I would cut the mic.
No, but I'm serious. You talk about the freedom of speech, all those type of things that are under assault today. How does someone handle that? Because that's not impossible. I mean, to happen. I'm just out of curiosity. And sorry, I really have to go.
I know.
Yeah.
Russ, did you want to make?
No, I was going to say that to the comments made, the city mayor doesn't have a policy regarding public comments, is my understanding. And I think that boilerplate language on our meeting agenda would be appropriate, similar to the Common Council. In other words, stating you're limited to 5 minutes, no engagement by the body. The body may ask questions and no action to be taken unless it's emergency or situation or something, which I can't imagine happening. The challenge with a policy in the Mayberry comment is that everything has a different definition, and someone may get up and speak about something that we don't agree with, and they may tie that to economic development. We may not agree that it's tied to economic development, so therefore I think policy would be constrictive, but I just think in the interest of Robert's Rules of Order, stating again on the agenda, public comment limited to 5 minutes, and we should know that we're not able to take any action would be appropriate. And if required, I'll make that a motion.
Motion. Do we have a second? Lyle, second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you for clarifying that. And we will get a policy written. Bye, Lyle. Have a good day. Mayberry. Bye, Mr. Mayberry. All right. So now that we've moved past some things on the agenda, we lost Lyle. Let's go ahead. Item number 15, I believe is where we're at. And correct me if I'm wrong, because we had to consider funding. We're not able to do.
But we just jumped ahead to 15 to allow the attorney to leave if he wanted to.
You are 13. Okay. So 13, consider request for funding assistance for Woodland Play Cafe project. Katie? Where am I? I have the wrong. Who put this agenda? Thank you.
Yeah.
I have like a weird agenda in front of me. Sorry. 13, review and discuss city's 22 economic development strategy.
At the last meeting, there was some good discussion about the need for a strategic plan. It was noted that there was a plan. Josh was actually part of it back in 2022. It's in your packet. I think we kind of agreed at that time that we would really roll up our sleeves and dig in to look at, what's been accomplished, what's still an issue, and look at maybe reformatting and coming up with a new plan that would serve us going forward. Given the timeline you're talking about for maybe ending this meeting early, it's up to you whether you want to pursue that now or make it a meaty topic on its own for another meeting. But you've got it in the packet. It's 4 pages. It involves other entities besides the city. It deals with a number of issues, broad-based with respect to economic development overall. So I take any questions, or if you want to dive into discussion, that's great.
Go ahead, Tom.
I guess I got to be a little selfish. I got to leave like in 3 minutes. So I would like to hold this over so we can have a discussion. I can be part of the discussion, and Lyle's gone now. I think that it would be nice for the whole board to dive into this a little bit.
If that happens in the meantime, spend some time looking at it so we're all familiar with it when we come back maybe on April 4th and kind of look at what was laid out and where we stand today and chart a course. Or
Andrew?
begin to chart a course, I should say.
Andrew?
Yeah, no, I agree with Tom. I mean, I just make the motion that to table this item to the next EDB meeting then, so we have more time to discuss it.
A second, Paul? Any opposed?
If I could, I had given this similar thought, and with the beginning of Carrie Edmondson for economic development, and these are not new requests, but I thought two things would be appropriate and timely, and maybe the report would be the report back to the board would be sometime after the reorganization of the city council or by the city council, which mean after the election. And two things I would like would be an inventory of facilities designed to improve economic development growth in Marshfield, meaning Mill Creek Business Park, East Industrial Park, Air Park. I know what these parks are for, Main Street included, what the capacity is and available capacity. And we can get into the weeds later. Just kind of a high level inventory of the investments we've already made. And then a list of organizations that are in place to support economic development for Marshfield. Not the wannabes, but the ones that are really there to network with the city of Marshfield for economic development. So it could be Wood County economic development, that kind of thing, just to kind of give us a lay of the land. And I think after the election, we'll have maybe new membership, new members on the council, who knows. It'd be good. And with your timing, Carrie, it'd be a good time to just kind of restart and get our bearings as a group.
I would say that's a good point. I mean, we talk a lot about active TIP districts in these meetings and tools that we have to try and help development get along. It'd be good to at a high level, look at those, make sure we all understand what we're dealing with and playing field as we start updating this.
So we have a motion and a second to table this. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Tom, you're leaving now too? Yes. We're slowly losing everyone. 14, review of recent announcements of CWED's new startup loan fund.
Yeah, this is also a kind of two-part, and I'll keep it short here, but many of you maybe don't even know about the CWED, Central Wisconsin Economic Development Loan Fund. We haven't talked about it much here. Initially, years ago, the city had its own revolving loan fund for businesses, and that was the starting point for what is now the 205 Economic Development Fund. It's currently fueled by dividend funds coming from Marshfield Utilities, but it really started with that revolving loan fund. And when we closed it out, the funds had been defederalized and we were able to use them to recycle them. But then we found out that CWED really had better terms, better interest rates. The regional loan fund was a place that we wanted to send people anyway. So if we found out a local business was looking for a major loan, they probably had a program that was superior to ours. So just first of all, a reminder that CWED has a loan fund. They make loans to Marshfield businesses and those in the surrounding area in Central Wisconsin all the time. It might be good to have a presentation from Kristen Fish, who is I'm forgetting her title actually with CWED, but probably the executive director, anyway, who helps lead the charge in terms of trying to promote and encourage the use of that fund. But then secondly, what you have in front of you today is just a new pilot program we're starting. It's a startup fund for new small businesses. And you see what the goals are and what the maximum amounts are. Usually CWED deals with much larger loans, but the startup fund is intended for smaller kickstarts. The maximum loan amount would be $35,000. It'd be a 3-year term. So we're not talking about larger loans made to companies trying to expand. We're talking about early days of entrepreneurs. So keep that in mind. If we ever become aware of something, we have people here who have come to us before with ideas. We can send them towards CWED as well if they're looking for low interest loans.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions? Item number 16, project updates, if any.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this short as well. We're still talking with Weinbrenner. Josh and I are engaged with them regularly. They have taken a step back for the moment. They're looking at the project, doing some value engineering in an effort to maybe control costs and looking at a new footprint, a new site plan for their facility. But they are very interested in that parcel we've been talking about in the business park. So we're kind of waiting for them to go through their paces, and we'll check back with them later in the month.
I do have a question then.
Yes.
Is the TIF taken care of in that area? TIF application and stuff? The new TIF?
Yeah, that's next on my list. Yep. We are still going through the paces of creating TIF District number 15. Josh has presented now to both the Joint Review Board and the Plan Commission, and they've been supportive. The resolution will now go to the council, I think, on the 26th of March, and then back to the Joint Review Board, and then we will have created the new TIF District. That'll make possible the incentive that we're looking to potentially provide to Weinbrenner and others in what will be a blighted TIF District. So that process continues to roll along, even as the company itself looks at some of their issues. We're still, again, you've heard it's a broken record, but we're still working on the projects in TIF District 13 and 14, both residential in nature. Both involve more than a single family component. The one being the Denyon Homes project at the 21st and Washington area, TIF District 13. And Jeff Hill's still working on a project between Fleet Farm and Marwood up along Veterans Parkway, downsizing that one a little bit and doing some massaging. We'll get back to when we have something more concrete to talk about, but going through some of the issues toward a development agreement, hopefully in both of those. Working on the update of the Mill Creek Business Park covenants. I thought maybe we'd be ready to bring that to the body this month. It's not. Josh and Tom Turchi, our Public Works Director, are meeting with the companies out there so they know what's going on. They can express any concerns about what's being proposed. Again, we talk a lot about how this ties to that potential community center or sports complex that's being proposed out there, but it's more than that. It's more than just the nonprofit and recreational use. It's also parking, landscaping, stormwater requirements. The current covenants are 25 years old. So we hope to have those for you in April, if all goes well, and you'll be talking about those at your next meeting and weighing in on those. The Housing Summit, some of you are going tomorrow. We're excited about that. Wood County's taken a really lead role in the housing issue. It'll be in Rapids tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. And they're continuing the task force. They're very active in terms of countywide looking at residential development. I'm sure I've got more, but I'll leave it at that unless there's any questions today.
Any questions for Steve?
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. All right. Let's see. Item number 17, economic development activity updates.
I'll make this brief. Just wanted to mention, I couldn't remember if I brought it up last month or not, but this board had put money into the C2 Makerspace for some of the funding. We did make a management change there. So if you've heard anything about that, things are moving forward under the direction of Kylan Hostreiter. So we're not missing any beats, and we are in the process of rehiring a director there, or a manager there, I should say. So I wanted you to be aware of that. In a couple months, I'd like to bring a more formal update as to where we're at with that and some of the committees and clubs that are moving forward. Working on Economic Development Day for our Leadership Marshfield group, which will be the 21st. I'm going to include Carrie in that. It's really a good chance to take 16 attendees, take them on tours of various Marshfield businesses and let them know what economic development is, or what we feel it is, how we work together, and what type of projects we're working on. Also working with Hub City Times on a new Marshfield in Motion booklet, which talks about different industries in the community. I know that sometimes things in print are outdated, but we keep these articles really general, and it's featuring some on ag, some on education, some on health. And it's also something that we can all attach to our websites. So even if it's not the physical booklet, which we put in all of our newcomer packets. It's in our lobby. It's in the city's lobby typically. I think we might be out right now, but I'll bring some more over and open for any other questions that might be out there.
Question? Okay. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Matt?
I'll just give a brief update as well. Again, Matt McLean, Visit Marshfield. I'm excited to announce that we've actually just launched it's called UserWay. It's accessibility. It's like the top level of accessibility for websites. And so we've noticed with the Marshfield Clinic, we get a fair amount of folks going to our websites. And so this is an easy way to increase font sizes, has different audio options. It also has abilities for folks that have visual impairment or hearing impairment. And so we wanted to just make our website as accessible as possible to everybody out there. So we're going to be pushing out a press release, and it's going to really increase our website to make it really, really easy to use for anybody. A couple other projects we have going. We have a couple new entertainment ideas for Maple Fall Fest coming together. We're also working on the Best of Marshfield program, and Visit Marshfield Grant program will be launching here in the next couple months. So brief update, that's all I got.
Thank you. Any questions for Matt?
Matt, how about mentioning the, since no one else has.
Oh, sure.
The project at the fairgrounds, just a high level.
Yeah. We Fairgrounds Commission meeting yesterday. Russ and I were both there. It's moving forward well. We have, I think, three different, three options, maybe a 3A option as well, of just kind of figuring out where this building is going to sit and some of the updates there. And I think an initial projection of cost was around $20 million, a very rough estimate, I think, of the project. But yeah, that project is moving forward. Carrie was also there, looking forward to working with the group on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other development activity updates? Oh. And then item number 18, suggested items for upcoming agendas.
I do have a question. So just in terms of direction for staff, so looking at tabling item 12, so the bylaw revision is one item. Are there any other items just proactively that we could help prepare or get together just to make the board more prepared to review the guidelines?
And we may want to talk about this a little bit, because if we come back and talk about the economic development strategic plan, that's a big item. And we already have to come back on this issue with the facade grant program, as it's been called. I will add, though, that a couple of other items we did talk about tabling today. Marsha Bushman said that she would come back in April if we'd like to hear from her. Maybe you want to wait with that too until it's determined how this whole funding thing is going to take place, because she is looking ultimately for some potential assistance to help get that off the ground. But otherwise, I agree with Carrie. Direction on when you want to see these things come back is helpful. So.
I think we need to be careful that we let staff write what we feel as a board. So I think we need to get our committee together and then maybe give them some input on things. Okay. So, all right. Last item. My agenda. So my agenda, your agenda. It's our agenda. We're sharing up here today. All right, so item number 19, announcement date and time for next meeting, Thursday, April 4th at 7:30 a.m. Pretty good with that? Okay. And item number 20, to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Second, third, fourth. Sounds good. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.